Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the episode 37 of the Decoding AI in Healthcare series. I'm Hetvi Shah, and today we dive into a clinical frontier of medicine, which is AI in clinical research, where data meets discovery and innovation meets impact. And we're truly and deeply honored to be joined by our esteemed guest today, who is none other than Professor Balram Bhargava, who is a distinguished clinician scientist and innovator who served as Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research and Secretary of the Department of Health Research. A cardiologist by training at AIIMS Delhi, he led India's landmark COVID-19 response, overseeing the nation's first zero surveys, rapid diagnostics rollout, and the accelerated development of Covaxin. He co-founded the Stanford India Biodesign Program, building India's first medtech fellowship and ushering dozens of low-cost devices to the market. Under his stewardship, ICMR has become a global leader in clinical research, policy, innovation, and the ethical integration of emerging technologies into public health. And his work continues to inspire the next generation of clinician researchers across the country and beyond. So, welcome to the show, sir, and we are truly privileged to have you with us today.
Thank you so much.
And guiding us through this conversation is none other than the brilliant Dr. Amit Kumar Dey, the founder of Doctors AI and the Indian College of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine. With over 15 years in diabetes and metabolic care and countless accolades for his pioneering work at the intersection of tech and healthcare, we are in expert hands today as well. So welcome back, Dr. Amit.
Thank you very much. A warm welcome to all our viewers at the episode 37 of MedAI podcast, Decoding AI in Healthcare. And every time I come back to this podcast on our monthly episode, I'm fascinated with the development that is happening all around us in the field of artificial intelligence and its intersection with medicine. And today I am truly honored. I am humbled to be joined by none other than Professor Balram Bhargava, sir. And everybody knows him, the work that he has done during the COVID days, the testing times, with grit and with valor. But I must also tell you that Professor Bhargava is the patron of the Indian College of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine. Thank you so much, Professor Bhargava, for joining us. It's truly an honor and a pleasure having you at this podcast.
Thank you so much, Amit, and absolutely a pleasure. And Sam, thank you so much for your very kind words of introduction. I hope I am able to live up to those expectations and the reputation that the words that you have said.
Thank you so much, sir. So dear folks, let's get straight into our discussion today with Professor Bhargava. And this is going out live to all our DoctorsAI community members and Indian College of AI in Medicine. So people who are watching this live, feel free to drop in your questions in our chat box. You can put it in the MedSynapse platform, and Hiti will take that up at the end. And you could also put up your questions on the WhatsApp group that we are all connected with, and we would love to take up some of the questions from there at the end of this discussion. So today we are going to talk about clinical research, research in India. We're going to talk about clinical trials, both centralized, decentralized trials, vaccine development, and drug development. And the ICMR has been in the forefront and been the pivot in many of these developments. And Professor Bhargav, you've been leading the ICMR from the front, especially during the testing time of COVID days. So one first important question is AI in clinical research and then AI going out on a large scale in public health studies. How do you see this coming in now that we have generative AI, we have machine learning and deep learning coming in, and adoption is quite good from bench to bedside and to the clinical labs. How do you now that you have had your experience through the ICMR and you've led the organization, how do you see AI coming in all these aspects in the various researches done by the ICMR?
Thank you. I think what has happened clearly is that now India is at the forefront of leading good clinical trials.
Right.
Till now, we were participating in large number of multicentric trials. We were doing some individual studies in small centers, but now I think the time has come, and I think we have broken that barrier in terms of our own investigator-driven clinical trials, our own investigator-driven multicentric trials. From that perspective, I think and from the perspective of the Indian Council of Medical Research and the research bodies in India, there is funding available for multicentric clinical trials, which are happening to answer clinical questions which are relevant to us and have implications to other parts of the world as well, not only the global south, but also the global north. Now, in terms of the use of AI for these clinical trials, I think the two important things that AI will do for clinical trials is one, most important is of data integrity, and the second is data security. So that will be really helped by AI, and the culture of doing large multicentric trials will percolate not only in government institutions, but in private institutions. And we can see it happening right now. And I feel that with this, we should, in the next few years, be leading with some important answers to clinical questions in leading journals like New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet, and Nature, etc.
Amazing, amazing. And I really believe that there is a lot of good quality research in our country, Professor Bhargav, and we do have a good number of physician scientists, and we are really grateful to ICMR for opening up these opportunities for our physician scientists and clinical researchers to explore these avenues of research, and now they can augment their entire research work with the help of artificial intelligence. There's a question that comes to my mind, and it would be in the mind of many of our viewers. You look at AI coming in the public domain somewhere in the end of 2022, when we were just coming out of the COVID period, and COVID started in 2020. Those 2 years of a lot of fight, a lot of things have gone in, and each one of us have lived that COVID experience as you have, and I think you are on the hot seat, taking decisions on lockdowns, taking decisions on on the surveillance that needs to be done, and everything, and the testing methods and the screening methods. One question is, if you had the access of COVID, the access of artificial intelligence in those days, what would you have done differently? And how would you feel the outcomes would have changed?
I think if we had AI and if we had the availability of data at that point in time, which we did get a lot from the West and we utilized,
Yes.
because our COVID was about 3 or 4 months later than what happened in the West.
Mm.
So we were able to get a lot of data. But if we had more access to AI with the computational resources that are really required for using AI, we would be probably faster, better, and cheaper, I would say it like that way.
But we still did a fantastic job. India came up great, and thanks to all the leadership from your end. So yes, if God forbids to all our viewers, if we are ever getting into any kind of an outbreak like this, we do have artificial intelligence that can possibly help us and our epidemiologists fight such kind of adversities in a better and a well-equipped way. So talking about COVID and talking about the pandemic across the globe, I think India stood out in the vaccine development process, and ICMR had played a very important role in the development of the rapid development of Covaxin. With a lot of data sharing was involved, a lot of data analysis was done, multiple steps of the vaccine trial was covered by ICMR in the best way possible across the country. So now with artificial intelligence in hand, and especially with machine learning, predictive analytics coming in, and a lot of uh, models coming in that can predict protein folding and unfolding, how do you see AI augment the development of a vaccine or the trials of a vaccine going forward in the days to come?
I think clearly there are three or four things, whether it be AI for drug development or vaccine development,
Right.
it will become much easier for target identification, target validation, identification of a lead compound, and for drug design and drug optimization, or even the vaccine optimization. And for drugs, the more important, and even for vaccines to a certain extent, predicting the interactions that may happen,
Yes.
and also optimization of the clinical trials that we are talking about. So these are steps where whether it is machine learning or deep learning or generative AI, they're going to play a huge uh, role, not only for a new vaccine development or de novo drug development, but also for utilizing some of the natural products and finding compounds from the natural products, which India and China have been talking about in a big way, but
Mm.
nothing has really, no major breakthrough has happened in terms of using novel methods for identifying newer targets from these natural products. So I see a whole new vista opening with the AI. And I also mentioned that once we have that, it is going to be faster, better, and cheaper. Clearly.
Mm. So
But there
you
are going
really,
to be
yeah,
challenges. There are going to
yes,
be challenges, and there are going to be challenges in terms of what I mentioned was the computational resources, in terms
yes.
of availability of data, and data ethics is going to have an important issue, and the last, the ethical values of utilizing the data and data sharing, which will have an important role. Or these are some of the challenge which needs to be ironed out. We did develop a white paper on ethics of AI from the ICMR, and I think that
Mm,
has been
mm,
released
mm.
after I have left.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
so that was I initiated that because at that time, when during the COVID times, we were just talking of AI at that, and it was really, we didn't know that we just thought that it will be more for image identification, for pathology or for dermatology, or for analyzing ECGs, and making a generative tool which will learn from multiples of data, or X-rays, or even analysis of CT scan. But we didn't think of it being utilized in such which way that we are now seeing it happen, and we will see more of that happen.
It was one of the first paper and a comprehensive, I think, compendium coming up from the ICMR, and I still remember getting hands on it in the early days when generative AI was just coming in, and that's the nature of the technology. Every month it's disruptive and it replaces one newer technology is replacing the older one, and it's evolving so fast that the older guidelines tend to fade away faster than it even gets adopted. But I think it was a great publication coming up from the ICMR, and we do look forward that more such guardrails and more such things could be set. And you said the importance of coming back to the vaccine development process. So I believe that somewhere we can really see the entire process getting fast tracked, the price getting cheaper. So do you really see that the distribution of a drug and a vaccine would be much more equitable in the days to come if we are to look at it from that equitable distribution of healthcare point of view, if we are adopting more and more AI, the good AI, in the right way in the field of these trials?
Yeah, I have no doubt about that, particularly once you're able to reduce the cost, once you use AI. I mean, initially there will be a higher cost because of, the computational issues. But later on, once you have the cost legitimized and rationalized, then we will be able to have it much less, much cheaper. And once it's much cheaper, the distribution is going to be much, much more. And it is going to be a win-win, and India will probably have to be a leader in
Yes.
supplying. Currently, it is India is supplying 60% of the vaccines across the world, but it will be supplying newer vaccines, newer products, as well as inexpensive products, so as to what and repeat what has happened with the generic drugs. Where all across the world we have Indian drugs now, more than 60% of generic drugs are of Indian origin. But having said that, with drugs, we are seeing few stray examples of new drugs being discovered in India, and we have this example of Covaxin and the other rotavirus vaccines developed in
Right.
India. So I think we will see more and more new development, and rather than copying what is available and developing it in India, well, we
Yeah.
have now the mRNA systems being established by some of the companies. So we should look forward to more of novel vaccine developments in the future. And as we know that products developed in India initially are suspect in terms of their quality and their capability. But later on, we've seen it in drugs.
Yes.
The confidence has been built up tremendously in the prescribing doctors, not only in India but across the world, for Indian products, whether it be drugs, devices, or diagnostics, or even vaccines. So I think there is a clear level of confidence that is now built up, and now is the opportunity for India to encash on that reputation that we're now enjoying across the world.
Absolutely, sir. And yeah, when it comes to using technology, especially artificial intelligence, a dynamic technology that's mostly data driven, it's also important that we are not only adopting a concept or a molecule from the West, but we are building our own novel molecule, as you said, on our own data. So data acquisition becomes a very, very important part across various diverse spectrum of the country. And we know India is a diverse country. The data in North India will be very different from East India and West India and South India. So from your experience as leading the ICMR as well as the Department of Healthcare Research with the ministry, the regulatory frameworks are still evolving. Globally, the regulatory guardrails of data protection, data privacy is still evolving across the globe. India has come up with the DPDP Act, but we are still sure that this act also needs to develop, and it needs to be more fine-tuned, and it needs to come up with more specific guardrails specific to AI in healthcare. So as the organization ICMR, we're always looking forward to guidelines and regulatory suggestions coming in. So how do you see these guardrails, being set forward by the policymakers of India with ICMR and such organizations in the front line in terms of data privacy and data protection?
I think it is very clear from the government's perspective that ease of doing business, reducing the too much of, I mean, deregulation in a big way, is the agenda with this present dispensation, and they are
Right.
very clear about it, that we have to cut down the processes in every which way. Yes, there are certain policies which have to be still streamlined, but I think the government is the direction is clearly in deregulating a lot of these issues. But having said that, there has to be a level of mental maturity within people working in different research agencies and different organizations across India and across the world to start data sharing and
Yes.
and have trust in the fact that we are sharing this data for global good, and that is what has to be, that mindset change has to be brought out in most of the people, and that is happening and will happen more and more.
And I believe that starts with data literacy. That starts with understanding, the potential that your data holds. And we have so many clinicians, whether it's an institutional clinician or somebody with a medical college, somebody who's a freelance practitioner that is sitting on tons of data. And that data could actually help us so many problems across the globe if those data points could be picked up and algorithms could be developed from there. So yes, it starts with data literacy, sir. And as you know that from the Indian College of AI in Medicine, that's a primary focus of our organization, that we believe in making our clinicians, our researchers, our healthcare professionals AI and tech and data literate, so that they know how to better play with their data in doing some good to the community at large. Just shifting gears a
Just
little.
before you shift gear, I think since you were
Yeah.
talking about
Yes.
data
Yes.
issues, we need to look at issues related to data uh, literacy in terms of data sharing,
Yes.
data acquisition, data integrity,
Correct.
and also how we feel that this data is going to be utilized for the good. So that has to be built in to the I mean the people or the physicians or uh, and AI has to be used to ensure that the holes in the data are somehow ironed out in some which way, that we are able to get it in a much better and a more robust data. And
We
that is where AI is going to be playing a major role, I feel.
Absolutely, sir. And I keep telling this to younger medical students that your data is the rear view mirror of your car, that kind of helps you look back, from where you've come, and then you look forward in the GPS and you look through the windscreen to drive safer and drive with in the right direction with the right intent. So that's what data is going to help us do that. But to utilize the data, it's not only important that clinicians share the data, but it's also important that we involve data engineers and data scientists and our friends from the technology world. The AI engineers come in, and we have found that you had helped launch the Stanford India Biodesign Program, which was a program to foster medtech innovation in the country. And as even from DoctorsAI, as we try to collaborate with tech organizations, tech startups, and entrepreneurs and bootstrappers, we always feel that there is a lot of place where there could be a collaboration between an engineer and a clinician to solve a ground zero need gap in clinical practice. So it's an amazing program that you had launched. So we would want to tell us about this particular program to our audience and what this means
Yeah.
for medtech entrepreneurs in our country.
Yes, that was the initial program, which is still running, and it is still running at All India Institute of Medical Sciences and the IIT Delhi. We started the program in 2007 with to develop the new generation of young innovators in India for medical devices. Now, this program was purely focused on medical devices, and we'd kept out diagnostics and we'd kept
Mm.
out drugs and vaccines. But obviously, the broad principles can be expanded to drugs and diagnostics and vaccines as well. The broad principles were based on finding like-minded people who are young, energetic, and want to innovate, whether it be doctors, engineers, or entrepreneurs, or even designers, and forming a sort of a group of those three or four people and several of those groups, and they visit different parts of the hospital uh, for which we call the clinical immersion part,
Great.
wherein they are able to talk with the doctors, the nurses, the ward boys, even all healthcare workers across all streams, and talk to them about what is the problem they are
Yes.
facing on a day-to-day basis during their work. And they have a diary and they note down those unmet clinical needs. It would be 500, there would be 5,000 unmet clinical needs that they are able to collect in a matter of a few weeks or months, and then they filter those needs depending on their passion for finding a solution for that particular need, or what is the competitive landscape
Mm.
in terms of those needs, and then ultimately finding the top 4 or 5 needs, and then finding a solution uh, as engineers, and constantly interacting with the doctors and the designers and the mentors at the All India Institute or at the IIT, and and trying to either junk their idea, which is maybe stupid, but to be frank with you, no idea is stupid. So find a solution for that idea, and then reiterate it, have a beta prototype, and then try to test it in animals, large animals, or and start a very early clinical testing if it is a class, as a simple product that
Mm.
is very non-invasive, then
Mm.
it can be
Mm.
tested clinically much earlier. So this started, and we were able to train about 150, and still the program is ongoing, and it's working phenomenally well. We were able to train about 150 young innovators, and they developed about 15 odd startups, which are now, this was 2007, and now the startups are being promoted in every aspect of society, and the government is very proactive. We had to face a lot of trouble at that time in time because of regulation, because of funding, because of the mindset, but it worked well, and we were able to develop about 14, 15 startups, and they're still happening, and 40 odd patents were filed, and few products got US FDA approval as well. Some of the products were launched in the National Health Mission as well. So it was quite satisfying from that perspective. And I feel this whole story of using the building on ideas which are there from different people, working together and coming up with something which is an incremental product, works phenomenally well. And that was the philosophy of the Stanford Biodesign program. And we were able to actually translate that in India. And later on, several other biodesign programs emerged in India. And I think the bullet has now left the gun, and I think it's more going to happen.
That's inspirational. That's amazing. Because I think you said this was in 2007 when people didn't even understand the value of technology and the intersection of tech coming in healthcare, leave alone data. But that's truly an inspiration, because we see that this is one aspect that can actually bridge the gap that most technologists experience. They try to build a solution, and then they try to fit it into the ecosystem. So it's like you identify the need in the ecosystem and build a solution around it. It should be the other way around. So this kind of program, this kind of incubation programs are amazing, and we would be very happy if more and more such programs are undertaken by various institutes and organizations across the country, collaborating clinicians and collaborating with the medtech innovators, from different parts.
I think we are at the cusp, and the ecosystem is developing in India. We have seen a lot of IITs and a lot of engineering institutes working with medical institutes together. Several MOUs have been signed. We are finding several of the engineering schools trying to have a medical school in their campus, like IIT Kharagpur, IIT Kanpur. Indian Institute of Science has set up a medical school
Yes.
just on the verge of takeoff. And I think that is going to be instrumental in developing a lot of not only medical devices, but newer molecules and drug discovery and vaccine discovery and even diagnostics. Because if you look at some of the early Indian indigenous diagnostics, like for TrueNat for tuberculosis was
Yes.
developed out of Indian Institute of Science. IIT Bombay is setting up as keen on setting up a medical school more for postgraduates, and I think they are working on it. The IISc Institute is ready. The institute in Kanpur, the infrastructure is ready. The IISc have appointed a CEO for that institute, and the IIT Bombay, having doctors and working with Tata Memorial Center, developed CAR T cell therapy. And we know, and that paper appeared in the Lancet recently, the first Indian CAR T, which was launched by the Honorable President of India. So I think things are happening between doctors and engineers. And if
Yes.
you look at it at the broader principle, many of the inventions in medicine, I would say 50% were driven by engineers initially, and 50% were driven by doctors. So there is no turf war. Clearly, we have to really remember that and work together and utilize the talent of both.
Absolutely rightly put, sir. And we are very much in the intersection, very much in the intersection of medicine and technology. And I believe that this will transform the medicine, the way we practice medicine, the way we look at medicine as a whole. There's always a context being discussed in the medical fraternity that, when a health tech product is coming with or without AI, there's not much real world evidence behind it, just like they're supposed to be on a drug trial. Like a drug undergoes trial, and there is a post-marketing surveillance, there is a real world evidence coming in. With all these initiatives from the institutes, and again from leader institutes like the ICMR, which will set a benchmark and give a guideline, how important do you think that real world validation and evaluation studies are going to play an important role in the adoption of technology and AI into medical practice by the frontline healthcare workers?
I think they will play an important role, clearly. There is no reason why they will not. And these real world evidence is very crucial for particularly the post-marketing
Yeah,
safety monitoring. So important thing for any product, number one would be safety. And that is prime and non-negotiable, clearly. And once that is established, then the questions regarding the efficacy and how much the efficacy, and then the cost and all those issues emerge. But safety will be top priority.
very true, very true. Another emerging context that comes up, as you rightly said, about data literacy and then data sharing. But even after data sharing, one biggest hindrance that clinicians face is the technology coming into their workflow in the most ambient way. They most of the time, this is more found in the West, where they have to adopt to the changing ecosystem of the technology around them, and it's not like the technology is fitting into their workflow when they're working in a busy hospital setup. The problem is there is a lack of data interoperability. From one particular interface to another interface, the data sharing doesn't happen interoperable way. Federated learning, as we call it, is still not very prevalent in most parts of the world, also in India. So with the government of India coming in with the Ayushman Digital Bharat mission and the stimulation of more and more adoption of digitalization of the health records, how do you see the entire shift happening, in the way documentation happens, and then there will be the need of interoperability coming in? How do you see this not only shaping medical practice, but also medical research as a whole?
I think this is will be a game changer, yes, but there we need to have importantly the data ethics and the data entry to be very nice and
Yes.
correct. And integrity, again, I come back to the same point, harping on that. If that data integrity is well established, which will happen with time, but not happen overnight. Once that happens, then I think we will be able to use it in every which way and sort it out.
We always keep saying, India has been a country that has been fastest to adopt. We did the best during the COVID days in adopting a lockdown despite of all the hurdles, all the problems. ICMR, under your guidance and leadership, led from the front, gave us the guidelines overnight. People adopted the lockdown. People adopted a vaccine strategy. People adopted the treat, test, and isolate strategy, everything. we adopted UPI payments so fast in our country, and that's an amazing achievement for the country. Do you really see the same kind of adoption happening as a physician and as a scientist? You've seen both the sides, the clinical research side and the clinical practice side. So do you see this same kind of adoption happening in the medical and healthcare fraternity as well? The aptitude to change, shift, and adopt digitalization?
I think so, and I think leaders like yourself are there already, and I think this will happen in a big way in India, and India will probably there have to be a few examples and few leaders who will ensure that this happens, and then India will adopt it very fast. We like to experiment with newer things, take newer products faster. The mindset is not that litigious, as I would say, or like mindset is not that regulatory in every which way. And once physicians have faith in that, and the physicians here we feel are probably still more pragmatic in their approach. And once they find that this product is pragmatic and is going to be useful, then they will adopt it. And in India, we have traditionally had a lot of paternalistic medicine, but now with taking the with the patient now coming with all the chat GPT inputs. He or she wants the doctor to listen to him at least. And once he's went out his knowledge about newer products or then the physician has to act with responsibility and also act with sobriety to take into account the messages which are there on ChatGPT. Many things are still not mature when we talk about uh, dealing it or utilizing it for patients. I often speak one point that medicine and biological sciences are a stochastic science.
Absolutely.
While engineering is a deterministic science, and it can be binary. Medicine has a lot of gray, and a lot of gray hair and wisdom has to be used many times to take decisions, which I hope that we will able to get some will be able to utilize AI to reach that level where we are able to use some of the wisdom and AI having wisdom is going to be very, very responsible in future.
Amazing, amazing. I think fantastic words of wisdom coming in from Professor Bhargav that will resonate in the minds of many physicians, many younger clinicians, as well as senior clinicians across the country. But to all our dear viewers, our Indian doctors are learning fast and they're adopting fast. From the point of view of DoctorsAI and the Indian College of AI and Medicine, we've been conducting primers, workshop. We have got a certificate courses. And I must share my experience here that the enthusiasm, the curiosity, the zeal, and the energy to learn that I see in a first year medical student is equally prevalent in a senior clinician who is 85 years old. And that's the spirit that we see in the clinicians in our country that they're looking forward to learn. So yes, bright days ahead for us.
Yes, I often say that we as Indians are somehow genetically endowed to be innovative and adopt
Absolutely.
products very fast, and I think that is useful. And medicine, as you already have put it very rightly, is you keep learning all the time.
Yeah.
Like an 85-year-old is still keen to learn, like a first-year medical student, and I think that zeal is where I think where India will win.
Absolutely. Every time we do a primer, we see artificial intelligence is one subject where a medical student and the faculty both is learning at the same time. So that's an amazing way of looking at it, and everybody is so curious. So talking about clinical research, Professor Bhargav, you've been leading as an editor-in-chief in BMJ journals and also in Indian Journal of Medical Research. And we are now seeing, even from my experience as a associate editors in some journals, that more and more data analytics are coming, which are AI analytics rather than the conventional statistical analysis that are being done. So, beside this and this, do you see a change in the manuscripts that are getting submitted in these journals, a change in the approach of clinical research manuscripts coming in with the use of AI and with the availability of AI and generative AI?
Absolutely. I think the quality of submissions has gone up several notches. People realize that, I mean, there are certain predatory journals still there, which would take all kinds of things. But the top journals and journals of the BMJ Group or the Indian Journal of Medical Research, which has got a very high impact factor now of about 5, and it grew during the COVID days. We are finding people utilizing Authenticate, people utilizing plagiarism software, people
Yes.
utilizing all kinds of things before submissions, and I think that is very useful. And obviously, the journal is also utilizing it at counter checking, so that is working well. And I think, but still, it is work in progress, and more can be done.
Yes, and I think journals are evolving also to the use of AI. And the end of the day, the quality of the work is going to come up. More quality research will come up using artificial intelligence, and it's great and amazing to know. So, as a person that would be looked up to by many clinicians across the country, and this is a question that I am often asked by many clinicians. You're advocating so much use of AI, but tell me where exactly I can translate from the bench to the bedside into my practice with whatever is available in my hand. So, what would be your tips to the clinicians, to the physician scientists, to the researchers across the spectrum, how they get started with AI?
I think there has to be an optimism for the UI. That is the first important thing. You have to be optimistic about it. You have to be positive about it. You can't be suspicious about it. That is one thing. The second point is that the AI has to be used as a tool which is there to help you out rather than compete with you from that perspective. So that mindset has to happen. But for clinicians, I would like to clearly say one important thing, and that is very valid even today, was valid a few centuries back, and is going to be valid a few centuries from now. And there are 3 things which are important in patient care. Number one is communication with the patient.
Right.
That is number one. And number
Right.
two is examination of the patient, or physically touching them and examining them, and let them feel that connect is there with the physician and the doctor. And third is empathy, which and these 3 things I often say in Hindi as sambad, sparsh, and samvedna. So you have to have empathy, you have to have examine the patient, you have to have that connect with the patient, and it starts with good communication with the patient. So those are 3 important things which will be relevant even whether AI comes and the AI is successful or not, which it is going to be, and we will utilize that. But these 3 things will always remain when so dealing with patients. More important for you to remember that we have spent on an average about 10 years in medical physician training,
Yes.
and those 10 years are useful years where we learned so many things, which yes, AI can give a lot of them fast, but those 10 years of actually interacting with the patients and doing what is right for the patient, as I mentioned, because it is a stochastic science, much of the wisdom and clinical judgment will always remain an important. But listening to the patient, they have done their homework with ChatGPT or whatever. They have come to you with so many questions. Important to listen to them and then give them a concerted view that yes, you need probably an X-ray and you do not need a CT scan, or you need this test and you do not need this test. So that is where we will continue to play a role. And I think nothing like it's a lovely profession, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be.
Absolutely. So AI is not replacing any doctors. We have said that. We have repeatedly said that. And that's not happening. Rather, it's an enabler that will enable each one of us to take precision care to the right patient at the right point of time, with the right intensity. And I think that's how we should look at artificial intelligence as. And great words coming in from Professor Bhargav. Lastly, we are almost to the end of this, but I'll quickly shift a quick gear. And I realize that beyond an organization leader, and healthcare advocate, a policymaker, and a physician scientist, and an avid researcher, Professor Bhargav is a cardiologist, a clinician. So, going back to your specialty, Professor Bhargav, how do you see the specialty evolving with artificial intelligence? How do you see newer modalities coming in the field of cardiology, and what is exciting you in that domain?
Yeah, first of all, let me tell you, cardiology has been at the forefront of using technology. Cardiology has been at the forefront of using clinical trials. Cardiology has been the forefront of using evidence-based medicine, and created an example for other fields to follow in every which way. Having said that, I would say that in cardiology, we will have AI useful for more in diagnostics, more in interpretation of, it's already being utilized for interpretation of ECGs, then interpretation of CT scans, MRIs, and more so in diagnostics, and little bit in newer drug discovery and so that's where I see that there is going to be a role of AI in cardiology. We are seeing a lot of other technologies like robotics, etc., happening in cardiology and cardiac surgery, and they are going forward. But still a lot of work to be done.
Great, great. We are looking forward. And just like cardiology, all the domains are going to be evolving. We'll see a lot of development coming in the field of, a lot of developments are already happening in the field of radiology and image related medicine aspect. And of course, we are seeing developments coming in the field of metabolic medicine, pathology, and everywhere, and especially in public health. And I think that's where ICMR and many other institutes, which Professor Bhargav has led, will be playing a very important role. So we've quickly gone through 45 minutes of an amazing discussion. We have sieved through, your whole journey in the ICMR, and we are now able to relate AI coming in as an enabler to help us do these tasks in a much, much better way. Professor Bhargav, it's been amazing having you, but I can't let you go without a couple of questions from some of our audiences. So I'll quickly take in a couple of questions.
Before we go to questions, just want to add one more point.
Yes,
The
please.
use of AI for public engagement and community
Yes.
engagement
Yes.
is going to be a very important role in public health. Also, the use of AI in crisis management, and also, we've already talked about clinical trials, of research, drug development, but these are areas where I think it is going to play an important role.
Very true, very true. And it is going to make the job much easier. It is going to make it magnified, reach a larger scale of people in a smaller fraction of time, and maybe even possibly give us one step closer to equitable healthcare distribution, if that's the utopian world we want to look at. Okay, so we have a few questions coming in, as I can see on the screen, and I'll take the first one on research. And there's a question from one of our audience that says that, what kind of support or training would make it easier to adopt AI in clinical research work? Your thoughts on that, Professor Bhargav?
Yeah, I think there are several courses and podcasts and training programs for use of AI for research methodologies, etc., which are happening across India on a daily basis. And I think it may be wise to use most of these methodologies related to data collection, data clarity, data literacy, data integrity initially, and then the use of AI for analysis will be very, very useful for analyzing that.
Great. Just keep looking out. We have so many courses coming up and so many custom tailored workshops are out there. From Doctors AI, we come up with our certificate courses and the workshops. And there are other organizations that are constantly doing many more workshops. So just be curious, be on the lookout, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of training materials to learn from. We'll quickly take the second question. And this question is about population health and non-communicable diseases and the work which is being done by ICMR. We understand that metabolic syndrome and NCDs, are kind of at the moment at a peak in our country, and it's another epidemic that we are looking at. We call it the metabolic epidemic. So, from the point of view of research and advocacy for public health, from the ICMR point of view, your experience and leadership guidelines, what steps could be taken to convert all these data into actionable insights and actionable steps through organizations like ICMR and allied organizations. So, how can the data points get converted into population health algorithm and then get converted into personal health applications? And how do you see this ecosystem growing?
I think this ecosystem is developing. There is enough data now available, whether it is for metabolic diseases or other non-communicable diseases, even cancers. We have from the early 80s been collecting that in the ICMR, and large amounts of data is available. Large reports are available. We have been giving much of this information and guidelines even to the government to take action. And there has been a call from the leadership as well as from the government on certain issues of, say, for example, tobacco control, use of less oil, use of less salt, less sugar, and some amount of legislation should happen and will happen in time to come. But from the point of view of the researchers and from the utilization of these data points, I think more important, as I mentioned, that we have to use these AI tools for public community engagement and also the population education for this, and that is where we should use these tools for communicating with the large. At the same time, I would not like to create a fear or a paranoia in the patients or the population at large, that everything they put in their mouth, whether it is a small piece, they're just worried what is going to happen, or my sugar is going to spike with this little piece of this thing. So that paranoia also should not be created. But education of the people, education of the masses for these non-communicable diseases is going to be very important, and that is what is going to win the war as far as NCTs are concerned.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes over content and over knowledge and over education sometimes can also go in the wrong way. And I think the right balance is going to be.
And there are some influencers who are also not regulated,
Right.
and that is also can become a problem at times.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's take artificial intelligence and this growing technology in the most positive way. We believe that it's AI for good. It's AI for good in medicine. It's AI for good for patients. It's AI for good for doctors in the most and the best patient-centric manner. That's what artificial intelligence should do. We believe it's evidence-based medicine going more and more into intelligence-driven precision medicine with data, and data.
Yeah.
Professor Bhargav, it's been amazing listening to you, and it's been amazing following you as a leader in the country, been a source of inspiration to so many clinicians. You have been a personal source of inspiration to me during the COVID days as a COVID warrior. So it's been a pleasure and an honor having you today at the MedAI podcast. And more than that, it's an honor for us to have you with the Indian College of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine as the patron of the organization. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Bhargav. Our members and our community fellows would look forward to meet you and interact with you, hopefully, in the DoctorsAI Global Summit in November, on 15th and 16th of November in Bangalore, where Professor Bhargav will be joining us there with a keynote session. And dear friends, we'll invite all of you to register for this event. This is going to be India's first AI summit, which is focused and organized by the medical fraternity. You all have attended summit being organized by the technology world, but possibly the medical fraternity coming in together, and we'll be having more than 10 to 12 organizations from various specialties who will be having their subspecialty track in the summit. So this brings the best of the medicine under one roof to discuss the intersection of artificial intelligence in medicines. So remember the date, it's 15th and 16th of November in the city of Bangalore, the DoctorsAI Global Summit 2025. On this note, Professor Bhargav, thank you so much once again for joining us. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so
And
much.
we look forward to your guidance and support at the Indian College of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine. To all our folks out there, stay curious and always be curious to learn and to adopt what's coming new, because that's the way forward with artificial intelligence and technology in the field of medicine. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.